Hello guys, Martin here, welcome to my home tabletop. I'm going to be showing you today how I've done the paths for tabletop gaming using comic book protector card. The stuff is not cheap, but if you're into comic books you may have a load of it laying around. As you can see here, there's a picture from the finished product, which is what we're going to achieve today. So first thing, what we need to do is we need to decide on how thick these paths are going to be. You can include curbstones if you wish in the same design, but it depends how three-dimensional you want your tabletop. So first of all, we need to measure the width of the base. I'm using a tabletop game Walking Dead from Mantic Games, and their bases are generally 25mm, give or take. So I like to try and keep the pathways to a similar width, because if you have to think about walking down a path, you probably could stand with your feet either side, touching either side of the path. Some paths are wider, obviously. So I'm going to use the width of the ruler because it's easier, because I've got two straight edges. That will allow me to get it exact. So the first thing we do, we put this down, butt up against the edge of a piece of the card. Get a sharp knife. Be careful, very careful. This knife pretty sharp. We'll slice it down. You may have to go through a couple of times on this card if you've used this card. And as you can see, the thickness of the card is almost as thick as the ruler, which is very handy for what we're going to achieve today. You'll see why in a little while. Right, so now we've got a strip of card. So what a lot of people do when they do this is they will cut little squares off this now, little rectangles, and then they'll start sticking them down in little places all over the place. Now, you can do that if you want. It's long-winded. I mean, there really is no need. It depends how quick you want to complete and play the game, really. So now, as we know that that is ruler width, we're going to draw squares up the strip at a ruler width, which will obviously then create squares, which will give you a tiled effect. So take a ballpoint pen, an old one. Don't worry about if it's not working. It just needs to roll. If it doesn't roll, it will scratch. So make sure one that rolls. Go and buy a load from B&M or Pound Shop. I mean, they'll do the job as long as they're ballpoint like that. They're not hard and they don't scratch. So this one's a bit, as you can see, this one's pen's getting a bit, and I'm nearly breaking it. So what we'll do is we'll move the ruler up from the bottom line. Put it on the line each time, and then push down into the card. But because, like I said earlier about the thickness of the card, when you push down through, it's creating a dent. It creates a divot, which creates detail, which is ideal. So carry on again, do a bit more. Stick another one down here. So now at this point you could leave them as tiles, as square tiles, if you really wanted to. So now one more. We'll just do one more. Make it long enough so we can get a lot of detail in. Okay, right. So now we've got that. We've got 4 or 5 tile sections. Now what we need to do is we need to mark halfway. See, pen's falling apart. Must get some more from B&M. Pen's falling apart. So just be careful that you don't slip, break the pen, or put your plastic in. Because I have done that. I pushed too hard and I broke the pen. So right. So what we do is we need to draw every other square. We'll divide a square into 2 parts to create a paving effect, like so. As you can see there, it's starting to take shape already. Now what I do is I fold along the uprights lines, the lines that go across, sorry. Fold across those because that'll create a V shape, and as you can see it's sealing the line up. And what that'll do is that'll lift the top edge of each tile section to give it a bit of a raised area. This is needed for, obviously, for when you dry brush. It'll pick up the edges better. If you don't, it doesn't pick them up. It picks them up, but I just think it picks them up better if you do this. So now, to literally just get your pen and just start drawing in some detail. Just be imaginative. Don't go too crazy and make it look like it's been in an earthquake. Unless you're doing an earthquake scene, then go for it. We could draw some holes, just like this, where something's fallen off a lorry or something like that, and it's just made a big old crack in the slab. And we'll go out from that to create cracks. So that's it. I tend to use a black pen, so if the ink does come through on any paint, at least it's going to look darker anyway, so that isn't really going to matter. But if you use a spray primer, which I will be doing on this one, then it doesn't matter, it'll cover it. But some people, they do tend to try and paint over these with tester pot paint or something like that. You get those for like £2 or whatever from like B&Q. I do tend to use those for scenery areas, such as me roads and what have you, because they're cheap and there's no need to spend 15, 20, £30 on tins of spray to do that, when you can get just a good enough effect with a £1.50 tester pot paint. I've got through quite a few of them, mine, because I've done quite a lot, but I haven't needed to buy a £25 tin of paint. I always just get a tester pot and then use it, or get a couple. So right, so now we've done that, what we need to do is spray it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go outside now, which is what I'm doing at the moment, which is why there's a little bit of a pause. You can wind it on if you wish a little bit, but I'm going to go in and spray it with some grey primer, Mean Machines paint. There we go. That says black matte, but then I decided grey primer afterwards. This stuff is like, I got that for £1.49 from B&M home stores, or you could sometimes see it in some of the cheap 99p shops or pound shops around towns. Um, it's really good stuff. I mean, you haven't really got to worry too much about the weather either. I mean, unless it's raining, of course. Just keep the paint indoors. The material is also already indoors at room temperature, so go outside, spray it on, be liberal, spray it on, and then bring it straight back indoors, of course. Ventilate though, I will stress, have some ventilation. And if your partner is asthmatic, like mine is, just make sure she's not in the room when you do it, because she won't like you very much if you do. So I will have sprayed this by now, bring it back in, here we go. I mean, look at that, look, right, picks out that detail lovely. The paint's a bit wet at the moment, but we will transition into dry shortly, where I will be dry brushing. See, that detail shows up lovely like that, and you can see the mottled effect on the card, given a slab surface kind of feel. So what I'll do is I'll let this dry, and then I'll come back to you and we'll show you how to do the rest. So here is the dried, primed Paving. As you can see, it's quite solid. That stuff goes off quite quickly, so you haven't got like wait a day or anything. And as it's card, excuse me, as it's card, it, for some reason, I don't know why, it just dries up really, really quickly, as if it was opposed to plastic. Right, so what I use is a light grey, or a light rain as it's known, tester pot paint from B&Q. Now, it's only, like I said earlier, it's only a £1.50 a tin, or a couple of quid. I mean, it's ideal for this sort of thing. So get an old brush. You can see this one I've already been using today already. It's got a little bit of black on it. That doesn't matter too much because we can tone it, we can layer it. That just adds to the effect of it. So just, you all know how to dry brush. Go across diagonally, flicking it. Don't push too hard, otherwise if you do have any thick paint further down the brushes, it will smear and create problems. But what I would say is, as I just showed there, brush diagonally opposite to any lines that you've actually created, because if you start brushing in the direction of some of those lines, you could end up putting the paint in the detail, which will spoil the effect of depth with the cracks and the gaps. So I'm still dry brushing here, my first layer. This again, dry brushing, it's It goes off pretty quickly. It dries pretty much instantaneously, to be honest. So there's not really much risk of smudging or anything like that. So as you can see from here, we've got not a lot, but we've got a little bit of lighter grey staining in places just to give it varied detail. So once again, get some more paint out, stick a brush in, and dab it in on the tips of the brush. Don't go too mad with it. That's it. Brush off the excess a little bit. There we go. And to test just off the side somewhere first, just to make sure. I usually brush it on my hand or something like that. There, go for it. Once you're happy, again brush strokes opposite to direction of detail. If you as much as you can, to be honest. I know it's quite difficult with some of these things because as you can see, the detail on here does point in different directions. But keep going, and as you can see from this, the edges are becoming more and more highlighted. Right, so a little bit more dry brushing. I think you get the idea. And as you can see with the detail of that, the large crack there, the contents of the centre of that are also being highlighted themselves. So you've got a secondary level of detail within the depth of the gap in the slab, and it's starting to take shape as stone. Yeah, obviously, go as much or as little as you want. But there can be a point where you go, oh yeah, I like that, that's good. And then you think, well, I'll just do this a little bit more, but then you can ruin it. There is a point of no return doing this. I suppose a lot of you know that. You feel like, yeah, that's okay, but could it be better? Well, if you're okay with it, then you're okay with it. I mean, don't change it, because you could end up doing it and then doing it all again. And as you can see, that piece of card was what I used. It's the piece of card I'm painting has still got the same rigidity. It's not lost or any shape, has not absorbed any paint, so it keeps its shape, which this is why I feel it's ideal. I mean, you could do these in long strips, you could do a big paved area on a complete piece of card. I mean, what I am going to have a go at some point is I'm going to see if I can, it's going to take me some time I reckon, but I'll see if I could do some block paving effect using a ballpoint pen and a steel rule. I may not go for herringbone pattern because that would be an absolute pain. I may just go for 2 block turn pattern, so I've got 2 vertical, 2 horizontal, and then rotate, obviously step line by line by line, and then see if I can create some sort of block paved flooring. That's going to be my next job. I'll do a video for that as well, so we'll see how we get on with that. I mean, what I did have an idea of what you could do was, I mean, if you was able to print out a pattern and you want to transfer it to the card, you could always tape the paper to the card on the edges and then draw through the lines onto the card, and then what that will do is that will just transfer a slight mark onto the card. Then you can take the paper away and then go over it with the ballpoint pen afterwards, so you've transferred your printed detail onto the card first. That's a good way of creating all sorts of textures. Might even have a little go at that myself with some crazy paving. I'm gonna see if I can find some sort of crazy paving textures online. So yeah. So now I've put the last kind of highlighted detail onto it, and we'll zoom in a little while. You can see that what's happened is bits of the paint from the first few layers have deposited onto the surface, leaving very like dusty speckles. So what's happened is the final layers have picked those up. So it gives you that slabby kind of concrete effect. And what some people do, I mean, you can fill those recesses with wash, which I've done in the next picture now coming up. I just use a little bit of brown wash and a little bit of green and just mix it together and just touch them in. I mean, you could go ahead and do all the gaps as well. I mean, showing the dirt between them, but that's completely up to you. This is a view from the other side of the other gaps and the other cracks. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned from this. You've been watching my home tabletop creations. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll be back to you soon with another video. Thank you very much for watching.